Street Fighter IV in its many reiterations is an insanely important fighting game that is not only responsible for rejuvenating the Street Fighter license, but functioning as the best-selling Street Fighter game since the release of the legendary Street Fighter II previously. But despite its success, what if I were to tell you that at one point in time, Capcom didn't even want this game to happen? The truth is, the history of Street Fighter at the turn of the century could have simply been that, history. After Street Fighter II's heyday, the franchise would relatively split at this juncture, with the Street Fighter Alpha sub-series functioning as a prequel, Street Fighter III continuing the canon, and even the Street Fighter EX franchise experimenting in the third dimension. That's without even mentioning all the crazy crossover fighters featuring Marvel and SNK characters too. After this splintered path divided a chunk of the fandom and player base, gamers didn't know where Capcom wanted to go. So the certainty of continuing on the road with chronologically numbered Street Fighter games was no longer a clear path. But before Street Fighter IV and its later editions launched jury to worldwide fame, a completely different title was in the works. So, with all of this said, hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. This is the insane story of the lost Street Fighter IV Flashback. Yeah. In 2024, we can easily look back at the dark age of Street Fighter and tell fans that everything's going to be okay. After the commercial problems Street Fighter III faced, coupled with the split directions Capcom could take the franchise in, it could be easy to see the franchise potentially die from none of the options truly taking off as the obvious Street Fighter II successor. But one day we would finally get Street Fighter IV. This renowned fighting game that made its debut in arcades in 2008 retains the classic 2D gameplay of its predecessors, while incorporating new elements to enhance the overall experience. One distinctive feature of Street Fighter IV is its visual style. Despite utilising a 3D graphics engine, the game maintains a 2D perspective during gameplay, giving characters and environments a stylised and unique look. The character roster is diverse, featuring classic figures from previous Street Fighter games, like Ryu and Chun-Li, as well as introducing new characters, each with their own distinct fighting styles and special moves. Street Fighter IV introduced innovative gameplay mechanics including focus attacks and ultra combos. Focus attacks enable players to absorb an opponent's attack and respond with a powerful move, while ultra combos are cinematic special moves that can dramatically impact the course of a match. The game's success led to expansions and updates, including Super Street Fighter IV and Ultra Street Fighter IV, which introduced new characters, stages and gameplay tweaks, contributing to the game's longevity and appeal. Critical acclaim was directed towards Street Fighter IV for its engaging gameplay, balanced character roster and visual design. The game played a pivotal role in revitalising interest in the fighting game genre and continues to be a beloved title among fans. But before the iconic game was concocted, let's discuss what else was being planned. This brings us to a project known as Street Fighter IV Flashback, a proposal for the future of the franchise made sometime during the era where Capcom was working with Backbone Entertainment to re-release some of their highlights from the past on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Autumn 2005 would see the proposal come to a head, with even an art book to help visualise the project, including a custom aluminium case. David Serlin, Thomas Grove and Chad Farr would be the main people behind this lost title. While these names may not be synonymous with the brand or significant to everyday gamers, Grove has worked on licensed titles like Iron Man 2, The Spiderwick Chronicles and Tony Jaa's Fighting Force, but has a Street Fighter legacy too by working on Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix and would assist in designing Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix. This art book opens with an image of an older, grey-haired Ryu being sought out by a 20-something Sakura, his apprentice. Ryu is clearly in exile at this point, sitting in his traditional gi in front of a campfire as electricity uncontrollably crackles from his hands. While Ryu would eventually fully embrace the beard, he's more unkempt at this point. Following this page and some classic Udon Entertainment art of the full Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo cast, a mock-up logo shows a gold Street Fighter logo, red Roman numerals for 4, both backed by a flying Hadouken above the subtitle Flashback. The rest of the actual art book is an exploration of the evolution of the character designs for Ryu and Chun-Li, including a glimpse of Evil Ryu. To explore the new direction, a physical 3D model with aims for it to be scanned into the game as a playable model was developed. 3D models also explored cell shading and brushstroke effects, which players will know would actually be a highlight of the commercially released Street Fighter IV, with a number of unique paint and brush effects. The following January, in 2006, would see the concept document highlighting on page 1 that it's prepared by Cernan and Grove with the intent for the game to be playable on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Yes, this looks to be an early taste of Capcom outright avoiding the arcade at launch, which would make sense when you see some of the concepts pitched in the document. Over nearly 20 pages, the pair make the pitch that, even after 15 years, Street Fighter's 2D gameplay holds up well, and we want to preserve and enhance the classic gameplay while giving it a new twist. The game must make the difficult leap from 2D to 3D, and it must be designed with an eye toward online play and console controllers rather than the arcade environment and joysticks. Like StarCraft was for real-time strategy games and Halo was for first-person shooters, Street Fighter IV will deliver a total package beyond its base gameplay. Fighting games are a mature genre with well-defined player preferences, so the way to capitalise on that is to deliver familiar gameplay with refinements and a few twists, and supplement that with whatever modes and features the genre has been lacking. Street Fighter IV will be the complete package. We offer an interesting story that actually has something to say. Ryu's development as a warrior mirrors the player's development. The life lessons of winning and losing are difficult, but definitely interesting. Our World Tour mode features many activities and learning tools designed to teach the player nuances of the game that other fighting games don't bother with. Our online support will go far beyond Dead or Alive Ultimate to include online tournaments with entry fees and prizes, massive spectator viewing, and the ability to save and trade replays of matches. This will enable users to create their own content. All of this will result in a passionate, educated, and involved player base. With controls designed for the console, rich single-player modes, and serious online support, we will deliver the total package this genre king needs to surround the solid base gameplay. Lofty ambitions, eh? The gameplay beyond the transition to 3D graphics would be punctuated by the flashback mechanic. Flashback would plan to add a new meter that would build up over the course of a match. By holding the light attacks, players could rewind the time up to 4 seconds, but would be limited by a rival's taunt, preventing someone from going beyond that. If implemented, players would have a significant reason to engage in taunting beyond just playing as Dan Hibiki, or attempting a 1-point damage hit as Chun-Li or Dudley. Imagine finishing an impressive combo your opponent would love to rewind and block, but to truly kick dirt in their wounds, you finish the combo with a taunt, preventing them from going back to before. This bar was planned to also be utilised by speeding up or slowing down gameplay, something Turbo introduced by basic menu options. Nothing in the middle of a match, and recording and repeating special moves. While the gameplay is important, the story and its world of characters are incredibly important to the Street Fighter brand as well. It's hard to engage if you have no connection to the characters. The document even admits that players never latched on to Street Fighter III's 12 and Q, for example, so the story mode would have begun with the aged Ryu that we discussed earlier in the video. Set after he violently defeated Gil in Street Fighter III, Ryu hides from the world in fear of his own power. Once confronted by Sakura, Ryu tells his story, his journey, in both the way to inspire her own journey, but also for his own needs, as it may be the last time he can tell the story. From here, the game would flash back to earlier battles in Ryu's life, allowing players to presumably tackle iconic battles with Sagat and then Bison, and his first challenge with Ken, etc. The game would eventually return to the present, where Ryu announces to Sakura that he must face his last battle, travelling to Akuma hidden in a cave as the final boss, potentially even the last battle of his life. This story mode would have been structured with a free roaming map that links fights together, alongside interactive cutscenes, training sessions with the spirit of your deceased mentor Goken, battles against multiple fighters, and even a return of minigames including beating up a car. The document then goes over the controls, much like how Street Fighter VI would introduce the modern control scheme. Flashback would have introduced the new Millennium control scheme, simplifying special attacks to simple singular direction plus inputs. For example, a fireball would be simply forward plus punch. Beyond simplifying the control schemes, this would change the charge characters to be quick in execution, but slower in recharging. The fighting would take bits from previous titles, with throws, counter hits, air juggles, staggers, wall bounces, floor bounces, super meters and super moves, limited to 2 levels. On top of the immersive story mode, traditional arcade and versus modes, Flashback would include a world tour mode, allowing players to complete goals to increase the ranking but not the stats of your character of choice. This would be a solid mode for single player gamers who want to branch out past Ryu's adventure. As the game would be a flashback, the pitch also includes that the game would include emulated versions of all 12 iterations of the canon Street Fighter games, which would coincidentally be the same lineup Capcom would release as standalone titles years later, from the original Street Fighter all the way to Street Fighter III Third Strike. Acknowledging that Super Street Fighter II Turbo is still readily played competitively, they would have liked to have a bonus game including a 3D modelled version of a game using the characters from the main title coupled with the original code and hitbox designs from the arcade classic. Effectively, Flashback would have included the brand new adventure and a brand new take on an iconic tale. On top of the 12 classic games, we truly would have received a love letter to the franchise. So, reflecting back on this mysterious lost entry from the series, let me ask you, would you have preferred us to get Flashback instead of the Street Fighter IV that we all know and love? Leave your thoughts on this mysterious project down below. Then check out my videos on these other lost fighting games. Yeah, cheerio.